Hello, peeps and creeps, and welcome to Fright Club and another episode of Monday Night Frights. I'm Gav from the Fright Club NI, being joined by our glorious co-founder, Mr. Danny Brown. How's it going, Danny?
Hello. Not too bad, not too bad.
So tonight we're going to be talking about Sam Raimi's Darkman, which is this very special movie to me, and Danny, I know you're a massive fan of it too. Really excited to talk about this movie. But before we go any further, we need to talk about something very, very important. There's something missing from this meeting tonight. What's the crack with your chin? Where's the beard gone, Danny?
You mean chins?
Chins.
I was tidying them up. I was tidying up my beard, and I took too much off one side, and then attempted to take some off the other side, and then it just kind of kept going until I met in the middle, and I was left with my clean shaven face. Well, it's not too clean. I left it a wee bit stubbly just so it wasn't too baby faced, but yeah, after near 6 months of lockdown. I discovered that there was indeed a second chin under there. So
I know how you feel, man. I've had a second chin for about 20 years, which is why my beard's always a couple inches off my chin. And in fact, I haven't seen my chin for about 15 years, so there you go. But is it not cold? Because it's getting cold out. You're not feeling cold a bit more?
It's starting to get cold now, yeah. So I'll have to, at least now we've got the masks. So when I go out, I'll have the mask on anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Shout.
That's the one thing, actually. See, wearing the masks now, not having the beard, it's less cluttered in there.
I know,
you know?
I know. We're here to talk about Sam Raimi's Darkman, which was released 30 years ago, 1990, celebrating 30 years this year, starring Liam Neeson, of course, the big man himself, eh?
The Ballymena boy.
Born and raised just around the corner from where we're at now. But yeah, so fantastic film. I fucking love it. I know you love it. I rewatched it again recently, and you were saying you rewatched it as well.
I watched it last night. Yeah.
Yeah, fucking brilliant, man. What a movie.
So good.
Good. I remember seeing it. My mate got a video of it probably a couple of years after it was out, and just watching it and I didn't realize at the time Liam Neeson was from Ballymena. Obviously, I was a kid at the time, and it was just mind blowing. Like, it was like, how does that happen? It's crazy that somebody from our own town can go on. Obviously, he's a fucking huge star now. Like, but back then he wasn't a big star back then. This was his first big kind of lead role, big feature.
And it's so, you can tell, the thing is, well, it's one of those things. It, like, his acting, and it's not great. Like, it's not Schindler's List, and it's not it's a bit ropey at times, but I think that's part of the charm to it as well, is that you can quite clearly see that for a lot of these actors, it maybe is sort of their early into career, but to see how far he's come since it then is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I mean, the performances in it are outstanding, and I love them, and they're iconic. But yeah, it's amazing to see how far he came from this then. Yeah. And plus, he's just a big, handsome bastard.
Oh, he's a big. You're right. He's a stud. Like,
even when he's got the burnt face and all them eyes shining through, you're just like, oh,
Liam,
you have lovely eyes.
Oh, Jesus. I know he's got the Irish charm, as they say. So, and there's a couple of times, even though he's playing, we'll get into it a bit more here, obviously, but he's playing a scientist who's supposed to be an American scientist from the States. But you can definitely hear, he hasn't quite got the American accent down to a T, and there's definitely a few wee sort of Northern Ireland or Irish slangs coming out during his dialogue that he has in the movie, which is fucking hilarious. I was fucking laughing my tits off, like, it was great.
Yeah.
But so Sam Raimi, this movie was released in 1990. Up until this point, Sam had been trying to, obviously, Evil Dead, amazing trilogy of films.
Great.
He was trying to get the rights to Batman for a few years, and he wasn't able to acquire the rights. And he also apparently was trying to get the rights to The Shadow, which would be released a couple of years after this. I think 1994 it was released with one of the Baldwins, wasn't it? It wasn't Alec Baldwin, Stephen Baldwin, wasn't it?
It's not one I've seen myself. It's not one I've actually seen.
Who was it? It was Alec Baldwin, wasn't it? One of the Baldwins, either Stephen or Alec, can't remember. Just, it's gone out of my head. But yeah, it was a decent film. A lot of similarities to Darkman, and obviously Sam wanted to make that movie, and he couldn't get the rights to it, so he brought a lot of what he wanted to do in The Shadow, which ended up being in The Shadow. But he brought a lot of that stuff to Darkman. But the main influence to the Darkman character was the Universal monsters from the 30s. He wanted to sort of create a brand new type of monster, very similar to, I suppose, like the Wolfman or to Frankenstein or to
Well, it's
Hunchback of Notre Dame or something like that, or that kind of
it's
character.
very obvious that the imagery of it is very Invisible Man. The bandages
Yeah,
and then you kind of almost have like a Frankenstein thing with it as
yeah.
well.
The freak, the monster.
Yeah.
What is it to be a freak or what is it to be a monster? So
Mhm.
that plays in later on in the film as he becomes more involved in his character and accepting who he is and stuff like that. But so Sam Raimi wrote a short story called The Darkman. Obviously, he brought it to Universal. He pitched it to them and said, I want to make a feature film," and they give him 16 million, which is a lot of
Okay.
money back in
Yeah.
1990. It ended up going on to make somewhere in the realms of 48, 49 million at the box office, which is massive, returns on a small film like this. And of course, it's went on to become an absolute cult classic for many. It was a film that's kind of got discovered and got loved long after it was released. Like, we can watch it now and just absolutely love it. But as you said at the start there, it's not perfect. The acting's not perfect. There's a lot of stuff in it that isn't great.
Special effects and stuff aren't that great.
Some of it's ropey.
Again, for its time, it's it's typical of its time for the special effects it has. But even some of the like props and stuff in it are really ropey. But again, it speaks a lot of Raimi's sort of style and stuff in terms of I think there's the bit when he's like typing on a keyboard, but one of the hands is like obviously
animatronic
sorry, it's like stop motion.
Stop motion, yes. Sorry, that's what
but again, that's very Evil Dead influence
yes.
and stuff, and I think that's very of Raimi to do.
Yeah.
So you almost kind of like if it had been anyone else maybe doing it, you'd be like, oh, that's a bit sort of cheap looking when they just like special effects it in. But because Raimi, you're like, oh no, well that's kind of a nod to his Evil Dead days and stuff like that. It's very much
a lot of the. I mean, it's clearly a Sam Raimi movie. Like, if you watch it, you didn't know if it was Sam Raimi that directed it. You'd go, hang on a minute, this is Sam Raimi movie. Like, you can just tell with the camera shots and stuff, and the way it's shot. It's kind of similar to
the
a lot
action
of shots
and
from the action. Exactly. Yeah, very similar to Evil Dead. There's a part in it where the camera zooms in very low to the ground during. I think it's during the explosion. The explosion part. The camera zooms right in close to the ground like that, and that's just taken straight out of Evil Dead as well. So but so is it a horror movie or is it a superhero movie? That's the question. It's kind of both, really. It was from watching it recently and reading a little bit about it. It was pitched as being a sort of Batman meets Universal Monsters. Really was kind of the pitch, I suppose. So it is a mixture of the kind of gothic superhero with Universal Monsters, because as you said, the Invisible Man, and there is parts later on where it's very Hunchback of Notre Dame, I think, and a little bit of Frankenstein as well. So, but yeah, amazing movie. Just before we go any further, I want to say the makeup effects in it is fantastic for the time. I've written the gentleman's name down. Tony Gardner was the guy in charge of makeups specifically for Liam Neeson, obviously. And he actually, funny little fact, he played the Lizard Man in the carnival scene. Remember that scene? Well, obviously.
Oh yeah, the Lizard Boy.
How could you forget the carnival scene? It's fucking amazing.
It's like it's just all the dialogue in that and how the characters interact in that scene are amazing. But yeah, so he's the Lizard Boy then, the freak.
Yes,
he's a freak.
He's the freak. Yeah. So I didn't know that until I was just reading a wee bit about it today and realised, I'd read it. So, but that whole scene, man, fucking hell, what a sequence!
Iconic. It's one of those things. Like anybody, if you quote the quote, and someone else has watched Darkman,
and they'll know.
That's you. You have a bond. You've made a bond as soon as you say the line.
I assume it's the take the fucking elephant, is it, or take the what is it?
Take the fucking elephant. Yeah,
and it's very. I mean, it's basically Freddy Krueger, isn't it? He's doing Freddy Krueger.
And I really like. I think that's one of the scenes for me that actually kind of makes it border. Like psychological horror then, because it's very clear obviously as he's starting to lose his temper and his mind, and then the whole background like collapses into this hellscape. You're like, oh shit, this is a bit freaky, and then he turns to her and it's just like, take the fucking elephant.
Take it down. Take the fucking elephant.
Like it's just so Freddy Krueger. It really is. Just the way he delivers the line, and I think there's a lot of things between this character and Freddy Krueger that's very it's weird. Like Liam Neeson would have done a really good Freddy Krueger had they had to recast Robert Englund at some point. I think he would have been able to step into that role really well, and just.
Could you imagine Freddy being like over 6 foot tall though? That would be
Well, I mean,
a really imposing figure.
he's supposed to be very tall in the first film. Like he's supposed to be kind of like a tall. I don't think Robert Englund is the same height as Liam Neeson, obviously. And he would the accent he would have definitely have been like, fuck, he wouldn't have had to. He would have to definitely just make sure none of the Irish came through at all, or that would have just been
just kept that
weird.
real growly voice that he has. Yeah.
That would have been a very weird Nightmare on Elm Street, but it would have been a movie that I would have definitely wanted to see.
If they ever brought Robert Englund back, do other Dream Demons Liam Neeson cast as because there's got to be other ones. Freddy can't be the only one out there doing it.
Well, they could do like the way like in superhero movies now, they're embracing the whole multiverse. Yeah, like Marvel are going to do it, and DC have already done it with the Crisis on Infinite Earth, and they're going to do it with the new Batfleck and Robert Pattinson as the new Batman as well. That'd be mad. Like Patterson, if they did like multiverse of Nightmare on Elm Street where there was like two Freddys and one was Liam Neeson and one was Robert Englund, and they just like
you could do the Irish. What would Finbar Krueger?
Finbar Krueger, aye. Krueger, aye. That's weird. That's so weird. We should write that movie.
Time to pitch. Yep.
I know. Here, I'm getting on to fucking New Line. It's not even New Line that own it now. Do you know who it is that owns the rights? It's Elijah Wood's company, Spectre Vision, I think.
Oh,
own the rights. I'm pretty sure they are trying to develop something with the Elm Street movies at the minute.
Right. So you need to get on the phone to Elijah then.
Look, I met him a couple of years ago. I'll give him a call. We're tight. Yeah. It's fine.
Sweet. Let's do it.
We'll get it sorted.
Finbar Krueger, here we come.
If I need like somebody to act like a human golf ball, I'll give you a call. Just make sure and keep the beard short.
Just shave it off and then green screen the rest of me.
Professor X type character, I'll give Danny a call. But anyway,
Sam Raimi directing a Nightmare on Elm Street film though. I could get behind that.
Sure, he's doing it. Well, he's not doing it. There's another Evil Dead movie coming, but he's not directing.
He's just producing on it, isn't he?
He's producing it. I think he's cool writing it, or writing a treatment anyway. But it's Lee Cronin, who's an Irish director. Okay. Directed Hole in the Ground, and I did an exclusive interview with him on the frightclubni.com website. Yes, so anyone who hasn't read it, click on there now and check it out. Cool guy. Hole in the Ground's a great movie, so check it out. Anyone who hasn't seen it.
We'll definitely have to do an Evil Dead episode.
Yes, I was going to say we're announcing it right now. We will be doing an Evil Dead episode. Probably maybe one for each of the three movies.
100%. Yeah,
but definitely the first one.
I could talk for ages about all three.
I know.
So,
I know. Mm-hmm. Can't wait. That's gonna be fucking awesome. Can't we? And we'll talk a wee bit more about Sam Raimi in those movies and those episodes. So if you haven't seen Darkman, why the fuck have you not seen Darkman? But anyway, if you haven't,
it's one of those ones. I think it's very underrated. It's a very, very underrated movie, and it is sort of one of those ones that I think if you see Evil Dead and you haven't heard of Darkman, if you then meet someone who has seen Evil Dead and has seen Darkman, they will immediately be like, "Oh, have you seen Darkman as well?"
Yeah,
it's a very word of mouth, I feel, cult film.
It was a movie that whenever I was growing up, like, I never heard it or seen it anywhere. And I remember if it was ever on TV or somebody mentioned it, I was like, "Oh, that's that movie Liam Neeson's in," and that's that movie I watched on video, and nobody ever heard of it. And it's like, but yeah, people have heard of it. Obviously, it's a cult movie, and now it's getting loads of love, and it's great to see that people love this movie because obviously Liam Neeson's in it and Ballymena for the win. But if you haven't seen it, we'll talk about the plot really briefly without going into too much of individual things. We'll talk about that in a little bit later. But it's about a scientist played by Liam Neeson called Peyton Westlake. What a fucking name that is. He's working on like a treatment for burn victims. So he's working on this thing that's like a synthetic skin type treatment, and he hasn't quite perfected it. He gets it to 98, 90%, 99% every time.
It's 99 minutes. It lasts 99 minutes.
99 minutes. That's it.
Dissolves. It degenerates, and then it turns out that it is photosensitive.
Yes,
which is why he then becomes the dark man.
It eats it in the dark, yes. And it's sort of, it shows you some, as you, like we were talking about the computer thing, and it's like cool late 80s, early 90s computer screens, isn't it?
It's like 3D rendering. It's like this hologram plate with like the 3D render, which is actually quite good.
Yeah, do you know what it is? It's 3D fucking printing, man.
Yeah.
Like if you look at guys that we know that 3D print, like those programs, obviously they're a lot more up to date and advanced now, but they're basically same sort of setup. They're putting in codes, they're trying to create a design, and
that's like capturing the pictures from all sides and stuff when he's going out and he's doing he's trying to get the photos of the bad guys. And he's like, oh, can I get this angle and this angle and this angle? That's all they're doing with those the scanners they get now to do the 3D modeling.
Yeah,
it is pretty much that was art predicting life right there.
Yeah. No, 100%, man, 100%. And even the bit whenever the model actually, the part, I think it's a nose is the first thing you see.
It's Liam Neeson's wee nose just coming up.
It comes out of the, remember those things you used to get and you just put your hand into
it or your face into it. Yeah. I love that. That's a great prop else. The way it comes in and just goes.
I don't know.
What are you doing with this thing, Scav?
I definitely didn't do anything dirty with those. But no, yeah, you put your hand into it and it was like pins, wasn't it? And you pushed it and it made an imprint. Pins, and then you made it. Actually. Do you have one?
I have one somewhere. I don't know where it is right now, but I have got one somewhere.
We'll get it out for the next episode, sure, and you can put it in the background or something.
Just my nose.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I was watching just thinking, fuck, this is actually happening now. People, obviously it was happening back then as well. Prosthetics and stuff, people were making prosthetic arms and that kind of thing. It was basically that kind of 3D printing idea. But so pretty dodgy computer stuff that they were doing back then, but basically he becomes involved with, or it's actually his girlfriend, who's played by Frances McDormand, who's an amazing actress. One of her, she was just kind of starting out around this time. She had done a couple of films, but she hadn't quite got to her peak. But I think she's up there with Meryl Streep and all the great actresses. Oh,
she's great.
She's fucking amazing. Her work with the Coen Brothers obviously is fucking amazing. Fargo, she's brilliant in Fargo. And what was that? Billboards.
3 Billboards.
3 Billboards. She got nominated for the Oscar for that, didn't she?
She won, did she not? I think, did she not win it?
Did she? She did win it. Fuck, she did.
Yeah, she won it. Yeah,
right. And Sam Rockwell was up for that too. Yeah.
Yes.
So she's a lawyer, and she is representing a city developer who is involved with a mob boss, or not a mob boss, but a criminal boss, who is they're basically bribing the zoning committee so that they can get land to build city or part of a new city, basically. Anyway, it's illegal. So she has this document, and they need the document before it gets leaked to the police. So they visit his lab because that's where they think the document's at, and it's not there. And the guy who plays the villain is an actor called Laurie Drake, who is, to say in wrestling terms, he's one of the best heels you'll ever see. He's just one of those villains that you just want to punch him in the face. He's just got one of those.
He's got a wee lemon sucking face.
He does. He's just got
real
one of those
sort of. Yeah.
Horrible faces. You just want to slap the shit out of him. And the way he talks and the way he delivers his lines. And I will say, whenever he goes in, I say even before that thing, when the movie opens, we get the sort of setup for the villain where he goes in and he takes out this other gang, and he uses the cigar clipper.
Yeah.
And I had nightmares about that for years after I watched that, because I just remember him putting, the guy's fingers in, he chops 3 fingers off, and it's just like, fuck, that's so simple.
When he gets to the last point and he's like, and I've got 7 more points. And the guy's just like, oh!
And the guy, he's already lost 3 fingers, and he must be thinking, oh, I'll lose another one, and then he's like, 7 more, fuck. But fair play to the other guy, he took it like a boss, he didn't cry or anything. But
I'd have to just come out with a cigar cutter and I'd be like, please.
I know. Here, it could be worse. He could have been cutting other things off, but maybe he did. I don't know. Perhaps. We'll see.
He did seem quite a savage. The times he would come out with stuff, and what was it? After he kills Liam Neeson's character's science partner.
Aye.
And he's like, you killed him the way I like it. And you're just like, what sort of thing is that to say to anybody?
I know. So some of the lines are pretty awful, I must admit.
Yeah.
Some of the
one-liners. But again, this is what makes it so iconic, though, because you're just like, who says that? Who says it?
So bad that it's good kind of lines, and you're just like, fuck, that's so bad, but I love it. It's just so shit that it's good. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of weird.
Exactly.
But so the guy, the mob boss, obviously is the main villain. He wants to get this document, and you know, that's basically the whole thing, is that he burns his face in acid first. And then
the hands get fucked
and
up.
the hands go. That's right.
Electrodes, and then his face gets dunked in. And if anyone who has what do you call it, that trichophobia, the like fear of holes, you know, all the clustered holes.
Oh, the wee circles and stuff.
Because that when his face starts burning, you see all those wee like holes forming in his face. It's like anybody who's got
funny you should mention that, because Janine constantly says to me, don't ever Google that, because she Googled it one time to find out what it was, and she was like, now she has this fucking trichophobia or whatever it's called, because it's freaking her out. And I'm just like, what's so bad about it? But I'm definitely not going to do it, just in case, because I don't want to get something weird like that, some weird phobia, like what the fuck. But anyway, so he burns his face, he sorts his hands out, and then the whole place blows up, and he blows out the fucking window, goes into the river.
It's that bit where he like gets blown out the building, but it's like very clearly like layered on, so he's just like really small, but it's just like bandaged as he like flies off.
It's so good, but I mean, it's like something you would make on your what the computers back, like Spectrum or Commodores or something like that. You know, you got like some weird Photoshop type program, but
and then just
it's
enlarge,
class.
Magnify, and then it's just flying up, and then his wee body just like flies into the river. It's that whole, even the fight leading up to that, how like cheesy it is. Like I think there's a bit when Liam Neeson's head's getting smashed through all these cabinets, but the camera's shot from the inside of the cabinet, and then his wee head's just like, you know, he's just like ragdolling it the whole time. But again, very iconic of Raimi's sort of action and fight scenes, is just absolutely ragdolling the life out of the main character.
It's brilliant stuff. Like Raimi, it's very iconic how he films the action scenes. But yeah, so he goes to a medical facility. He's presumed dead by Frances McDormand's character, who is called Julie.
Yes.
And they were supposed to get married. He had just proposed to her, and she was like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm a career woman. I'm not sure yet. I need to think about it." And now she's obviously regretting it because he's dead.
Well, that's it. Sure, she just as it's about to blow up, she's walking up to the house or to the flat, and it's like, "Will you marry me?" And then the place just goes, and she's just standing there like, and then it does that fade in to her at the funeral.
Oh Jesus!
Just like that. And what was it? It's like the guy, the grave digger, standing with the hearse driver, and the hearse driver's like, "You don't seem to be doing very much." And the grave digger's like, "All they found was a bit of an ear."
I know. Well, I've actually written that down because I was like, why was there nobody else at the funeral? Like, was he that unpopular?
The priest, her, and then those two. And then as she walks away from the grave, she just falls over. It's not really a faint. She just kind of like trips. And then the priest is like, "Oh."
I know. It's so weird because she's just wearing her, you know, typical black gear, and she's like very like, ooh. And but yeah, why was there nobody else? Like, did he not have any friends? Did she not have any family or friends? It was just very weird. Yeah. But yeah, just an ear. So not even a full ear, just a bit of an ear.
It was a bit of an ear, yeah.
Just a wee lobe. They were burying a fucking lobe. But
it's such a big grave as well. They've got all these big flowers, this big mound for like a bit of an ear.
I know, it's weird. It's class though. So anyway, he ends up going to hospital. He's a John Doe type character, and they're I forgot Jenny Agutter's in it actually from American Werewolf in London. She plays the doctor. She's the doctor or the nurse or the physician in charge of his treatment, and they're going to do like experimental treatment on him to help get him back. But there's a side effect to this treatment because he can't feel pain. So he can't actually feel anything. He's got no sensory feelings at all after this treatment, which helps him to... It also creates uncontrollable rage. Is it rage? Is that what we'll call it? Rage?
It kind of... Yeah. It's probably just his rage, his emotive rage.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, because he just sort of freaks out because he just wakes up being like rotated in this big circle.
She actually calls it uncontrollable rage and augmented strength. So there you go. AS, we'll call it for short. But so this is when I was going to say you can start to see a lot of influences from Batman, from Tim Burton's Batman, because a lot of the shots at night are very Gotham-esque. You know, they're very like. There's a scene when he escapes the hospital. He, you know, obviously pulls himself off the table and just runs and jumps out the window, and then the nurses come in and they see the window sort of flapping open, and then it's sort of, and Danny Elfman's music. We'll talk about Danny Elfman a little bit more detail, his score in a wee bit, but just that big orchestral theme, very, very Batman-esque theme, and the windows are flattened back, and then you see that shot of the skyscrapers, and it's dark, and it's like black and purple with a couple of lights going, and it's obviously like a matte painting in the background or whatever, but it's very Gotham-esque and like almost weirdly Gotham-esque, some of the shots in it.
There's that one. There's the one shot in particular, and it's like I think it's after he's taken out one of the gangsters, and he's standing between two gargoyles, which are very clearly out of place.
Yeah,
these two gargoyles, they're very, very out of place.
They're not even
kind of crouched between them, and he's just like, "What have I done?"
I know. Well, actually, they're not like they're gargoyles, obviously, but like they're not even. They're just like old men.
From a Halloween store.
I know. They're just they're like Barney. They look like Barney from The Simpsons. You know, they're just a weird round sort of fat face. Yeah. And they do this weird sort of close-up shot of them to establish them, obviously, and then it cuts to the scene where they're both here, and
he's in the middle.
He's right in the middle, and he's doing the old sort of sitting perching. You know, he's perched on the end. He's like, "Ooh, woe is me." But actually, I'd written that scene down as well because I definitely wanted to mention that scene.
Yeah, but, that's as you said. That's a bit. I feel it's a bit of a call to the kind of Hunchback of Notre Dame, but also Batman and Burton's Gothic sort of thing as well. But it is when that scene watched it last night and that came up, I was like, those gargoyles are so out of place.
I know, it's weird. It's just you wouldn't have minded it had they sort of established that kind of style of the city beforehand. You know, in Gotham, you kind of know it's Gothic. It's got buildings with gargoyles, and it's got that old style type of buildings. I wanted to talk about the main titles because I wanted to talk about Danny Elfman's music as well. He was coming off doing Batman, which is amazing score. You know, Tim Burton's Batman would not have been the same film without Danny Elfman's music, and very iconic main titles to that. The Darkman main titles is quite similar. You know, it's very orchestral. It's got that starts off kind of low and rises into this big sort of orchestral piece, and a lot of the same motifs to it. Like it hits a lot of the same notes. A lot of his scores are they're different, but they're the same, and I suppose that's what makes the best composers the best composers. Like even if you look at someone like John Williams, who one of probably the greatest film music composer of all time, and a lot of his stuff is very similar as well, but you can tell it's John Williams because he hits those certain notes and you go, oh, that's like just one note.
Elfman in particular, just like you immediately know as soon as you hear that first kind of couple of notes, you're like,
yeah,
that's him. And I mean, I think even with The Simpsons as well, like the Simpsons thing is immediately recognizable as one of his. You
sort of forget that he did The Simpsons, but then when you listen to it, you're like, fuck, that sounds like this film and that film and this and and like I love Nightmare Before Christmas, and
yes, of course
you can hear a lot of notes in that and motifs and themes that are in a lot of his other scores because he loves that sort of obviously the macabre, the dark tone to it, the Deus Area as well. He does that there quite a bit. Fantastic score from Danny Elfman as always. Like he's rarely done a bad score that I think anyway.
No, he's, as you just said, he's iconic for doing his own thing and he makes it work, and I think as well, like I think if I didn't know that if I wasn't a Raimi fan, I would maybe have assumed that this was a Burton movie just because of the soundtrack and some of the iconography and stuff.
Yeah. But I wanted to get back to actually Liam Neeson's accent in it. Obviously born and bred Ballymena, moved to London when he was quite young to become an actor, and then end up going to America and making it, becoming a fucking massive actor. But there's a couple of lines of dialogue that just made me fucking piss myself. He doesn't call it a hospital; he calls it a hospital. Hospital. Hey, I gotta go back to the hospital. And he's trying his best, to put a wee American twang on it, and it just does. It just comes out as pure fucking Northern Irish, and it's fucking hilarious. And then there's another bit where he's like, instead of saying yet, as in Y-E-T, he's like yet, as in Y-I-T. Yet. Oh, we're not quite there yet. And it's just like I was just like, fucking hell, fair play to him. Like it's a difficult thing to do to maintain an accent. which is so foreign to you. I mean, it sounds easy to do, like you can do, I can do a American accent, no bother, no bother. But when you're doing it constantly for, I think
a role,
a lot of those days were long days. Like I was reading today, there was some of them were like 14-hour days where he had to do, you know, especially when he was in his makeup.
Yeah.
So it would have been quite tough to maintain that sort of scene.
Yeah, trying to do the accent, especially with because when he's in the makeup, he's got like those like little artificial teeth.
The teeth that he chatters.
Which he's like.
I know it's like later on, whenever he loses the bandages, you're right, and it's like, oh, we've got these teeth, so let's try to do something with the teeth. So instead of just showing them on screen, he's like.
Yeah, he's like chattering. Everybody's like talking.
It's like, I can't chatter my teeth. But
they remind me so much of Evil Ash from Evil Dead 3. You know,
it's
very similar sort of mouth. The way it's put together with all the wee teeth, the individual wee teeth, which kind of move funny when the jaw moves. But again, the makeup makes it really. I think the makeup is class, but the wee teeth kind of coming through.
Brilliant, man. The makeup's class, and it's so good because I would think it's quite iconic. It's maybe not something that people would necessarily go to straight away whenever they think of horror makeup or film makeup in general. But you know, you see that and you go Darkman, you know, and it's quite different in the sense that you know it's only part of his face that's kind of missing here, and it's you know
it's just around the left eye that really is the only bit that still looks okay. All the rest of it's just.
So it's really good, but also the costume. Like, it's very basic, but it's fucking amazing. See,
that big coat.
Those first few scenes, whenever he is crawling around in the rain and stuff, and it's really dark and gritty, and he's literally crawling in puddles, and he's like, oh no, but he's hunched over, and he's got the kind of cape. It looks more like a cape.
Yeah,
I think it's supposed to look like a cape, obviously, but it's like a trench coat type thing. And then he's got the hat and the way he turns, and it's a big throwback to stuff like The Shadow, or
it's very Phantom of the Opera. I found with a lot of it, and even the fact that you know instead of having that one part, like Phantom of the Opera has the one part that he covers with the mask, whereas with Darkman it's the one part that's okay, and then the rest of it around it. That's sort of messed up, and especially the scene, you know, the scene where he's kind of like freaking out, and he puts the wee like tin funnel on his head, and he's just like singing and being like,
"I'm a little circus freak."
Yeah, exactly. But that again, that I felt harkened back to kind of Hunchback and Phantom of the Opera and that there sort of stuff when he's like in his lair and he's just having like a complete and total meltdown, and then he's like, "I'm a scientist. I need to rationalize."
And then as soon as he says that, the thing starts to work, and it's kind of like, is there a connection between your rage and your belief in your work and the work actually happening? I don't think they don't go with that, but it was an interesting sort of scene. But yeah, that scene fucking cracked me up, man. It was like, that was very later Freddy Krueger as well, like later on in the movies when he kind of turns into a bit of a pantomime type character, and he's like, but yeah, I'm a little circus freak, and he gets it's a funnel. It's not even a hat.
Funnel.
Yeah.
It's a proper Tin Man.
He's talking to the cat as well, so it's just before he goes to it's just after he goes to the new lab, and there's a cat there, and he goes to pet the cat, and the cat
it scraps him, and he's just like, my new home.
Hello. And he looks up and he's like, oh, home. And then the birds fly in the back, and you're just like, okay, great, you're home finally. But yeah, it's very much like Quasimodo, Phantom of the Opera, Frankenstein, you know, I'm a recluse, I'm a monster, and this is my lair, like the Beast from Beauty and the Beast type thing, where this is my lair, not the animated one, the Ron Perlman one, which is, you know, hit or miss.
Haven't seen it. I've seen the images and stuff, obviously, Ron Perlman all done the makeup. I've never seen the film itself.
He looks like a big cat with long hair. Linda Hamilton as well is in that, but it's not great. But anyway, that kind of idea, you know, where he's like a beast, he's a monster, he's a freak, and this is his lair, and he's home, and he feels home now. But that's a good scene because it kind of splits the film, where he's now accepting this is who he is, and he now knows what he has to do to get revenge, and that's the whole point of the film, is that he wants to get revenge on Durant, who's the villain, the main boss,
the main big bad.
Well, actually, the main big bad is
as you find out,
is the guy, the developer, who you find out later on, is the main bad, who
was it Louis Stack? Is that
Stagg? Yes, Stagg. Sorry, Stagg. Yes, he's a city developer, and then you find out later on that he's actually the one that's running things
behind the whole thing. Yeah,
Durant is just working for him, and I did think he's like a pure Italian sort of modern Italian gangster, I suppose. But he was very Christopher Walken. I did like his voice. But do you know who he reminded me of? His voice. And as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, "You've seen The Sopranos, haven't you?" Yeah, of course. Yeah, you watched it. Yeah. Do you remember Father Phil? No, not in looks or anything, just his voice.
No, just the voice.
If you listen to that guy Stack talking in The Darkman, and then you close your eyes, you can just see Father Phil being like, "Hey, Carm, want to watch a movie tonight?" Or
the bit when he's just like,
"Where's the ZD?"
Where's it? Was it when grief? Oh, there's no cure for grief, but you know what helps?
Oh,
dancing.
I know. And suddenly, all her problems are gone, as if Yeah, and there's a weird thing where they sort of make it out that they're a couple, but they don't actually.
Yeah. No, there's nothing apart from that one scene.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to suggest until she goes back later to him and she's like, "We need to stop."
Yeah. Yeah, and then he says to Darkman later, he's like, "Oh, I've become very intimately close to you." Obviously, he's just playing him. He's playing up with that, but it's just kind of like
something like, "I like her taste," and you're like,
I know, it's weird. He's got a lot of weird lines. I didn't really particularly like him. I just kept thinking of Father Phil wanting Ziti off Carm, but yeah, it was very weird. But so we may as well talk about a couple of the best scenes, which I love the start of the film. The first half I really love because it's quite dark, and it's the story of him becoming Darkman and then accepting his flaws and what he is, and it is quite dark. And then kind of halfway through the film and towards the end, it there's quite a big part of it that's filmed during the day. And other than the carnival scene, which we're going to talk about now, which is the best scene ever, I don't really like a lot of the day stuff because it looks kind of shitty. It just didn't really fit in with the theme of the movie. Kind of
being a dark man.
Yeah, being the dark man, especially at the end with the helicopter scene. It kind of could have done without. Yeah, it was very generic action movie, and it didn't really fit in with the theme of the movie. But
because I mean, the setting for the final kind of showdown, like in around his lair, and then being up in that building, around the scaffolding of the building and stuff, it's all very cool and could look cool with like spotlights and stuff on it. But then, as you say, because it's the middle of the day and very obvious that they're kind of shooting stuff when there's like very little traffic on the roads and all as well.
Yeah, it just looked weird. Like it kind of almost looks that the stuff during the day, like whenever there's the two Durants, which was a cool scene. I loved all the times whenever he puts on the masks. We forgot to mention, by the way, at the start when we were talking about the plot, that he can create people's faces and wear them. Yeah. Which is kind of the main.
He's got to take all the pictures. He's got to take pictures of the villains so he can really render their faces and hands.
Yeah. I mean, that's the main plot. That's how he sort of gets into the gang. But there's loads of cool parts where he's wearing the gang's faces, and then he meets the member that he is being. And the bit where he's Durant and they're in that elevator, or not the elevator, the door.
The rotating door.
And they just look at each other. And then it's kind of that Terminator 2 scene where, there's the two of them. And they're like, kill him, kill him. And
show him.
Yeah, and so that's a cool scene.
When they chuck the gangster out the window and he like crashes down on the car and the woman's like screaming and then she looks around behind her and Darkman's sitting there with his face on and he just kind of like smiles at her, but then he starts to bubble and she just freaks out even more. But no one else takes note. Everyone else is just saying to her and he's just like "Marr," and like scuttles away.
He just runs off and then she starts going mad and police are like, "Oh, it's all right, love, it's all right, don't worry, fucking
it's fine, don't you worry about it.
You need a coffee?" But yeah, it's great. But so we'll talk about the carnival scene. It's shot during the day as well. I just think the day shots are really weird. They're lit weird or something. I don't know. It's bizarre. It kind of makes the characters look like they're not really there.
Yeah, I think it's too naturally lit or something. I think they probably did just rely on the natural light of it all.
Yeah, could have been really early morning. But the carnival scene, so he has met Julie again, and he's taken him to the carnival, and he's playing a carnival game where he's throwing a ball, hitting down the skittles, and he does it 3 times, and he's starting to lose it a little bit, and then the third time he gets it, and the guy's like, "Nah, you weren't behind the line."
Yeah.
And he's like, nah, I was, mate. Seriously, that was behind the line. He's like, nah, I told you weren't. And he starts to lose it. And this is, you've seen his rage before, but this is the first time he's taken out on an actual person in broad daylight in front of Julie, and the whole situation is about to explode. We were talking about it briefly at the very start there. The shots start to warp. You know, it's that sort of warping shot. And it zooms into his eyes, and then you just randomly start to see like explosions and like space and what have I written down here? Oh, blood. There's like blood, so it's obviously showing his blood's getting, you know, he's
blood boiling and
exactly he's boiling. He's getting fucking angry. He's raging.
This is his mind cracking.
Combustion,
all those cracks and stuff.
And he knows he's about to go because his face is about to go because his forehead starts bubbling in a little bit. You can see,
and there's a bit steam. There's a wee bit of steam and all.
There's a bit of steam, yeah. And then he goes fucking mad and he does that line, "Take the fucking elephant."
Take the fucking elephant.
I know, it's just amazing. And then his strength starts to come out because he punches or he throws the guy against the wall and he goes like fucking right through the thing.
Yeah.
And then he fucks off. He runs off back to. But it's funny because he takes the elephant, or he takes it with him, doesn't he? Does he not take?
Does he run off with the elephant? I think does he not like shove it at her or something?
He shoves it at her, but there's definitely a scene. Maybe she follows him, and he goes back to the lab.
Yeah, she
definitely a scene where he's running upstairs, and he's got the elephant. And he's like, "Ooh!" And you just see him from the back. He's like, "Ooh!" And he runs in, and then she goes in, and his face is melted. And he's got the Darkman face, and then she's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" and la la la, and all that sort of stuff. And that's whenever it sort of comes out, you know, the whole story of what's been going on, and it does kind of turn into more of a Beauty and the Beast sort of Frankenstein type sweet story where he's like, "Oh well, you would only stay with me if my face was like it was," and it's all about what's inside that counts and that kind of thing. And they do try to tell that story a little bit at this point, but then you know the actions. The action kicks in, the gang comes in, and we get a fucking couple of cool action scenes, and then it sort of starts working towards the end of the movie, which is the big action scene with the helicopter where he's hanging from the helicopter, and then they go to the apartment building, and that's when she finds out that it's your man. What's his name? Stack,
yeah. And
then they have that scene at the end where they have Stack and Darkman. They're on this big building that isn't complete. It's just like, you know, the beams, I suppose, and they're just like randomly jumping across beams, you know, as if they're fucking in the circus. I don't know if that was like a wee sort of like, "Oh, you are a circus freak."
There's the line that Stack says about like, "Oh, my father used to always worry about me coming up here with the." What is it he says? There's something really weird. He's like, "Oh, coming up. Is it something to do with like gypsy kids or something?" He's like, "My father would never allow me to come climbing up the scaffolding with the," but you know, he kind of has a whole reason for being able to do it, like leap around,
like he's
scaffolding.
He's sort of grown up doing that sort of like parkour, I suppose.
Yeah,
parkour. Like, parkour before it was parkour. Just randomly jumping from fucking beam to beam, you know, hundreds of feet in the air, like as you do. But yeah, so but yeah, that's actually not too bad because there's a bit of. You know, it drags on a bit, and he's sort of explaining, "Oh, this is why I've done it," and and it sort of does drag on.
His bad guy monologue.
He does the bad exactly, and it kind of drags on, and it's a bit, you know, formulaic. And I would rather have just kind of him come out and just have that kind of explosive end, and that be it. I think the film does derail a little bit just before the helicopter scene.
Yeah,
it kind of derails and kind of sways off a wee bit. And there's that scene where the helicopter he's going through, and then there's all the traffic and stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of derails itself a little bit off that. Up to that point, it's fucking great movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, fucking amazing.
Of course, my other favorite scene is the bit when he's just caught one of the henchmen, Rick, who is actually Raimi's brother.
Oh, yeah, Ted Raimi.
And he like pops him up from the sewer, and he's just like flopping around as all these cars, and then the truck just like pulls up. But the thing is, the way it's shot, it's very clear that the truck just stops just before the camera, but the tires gone over him. Yeah. But just the way he's like wiggling around,
I know.
Like,
I actually forgot Ted Raimi was in it. But yeah, he's in loads of movies. He's obviously in quite a few Sam Raimi movies as well. But there's a great shot I wanted to say whenever he's in his lair and he's trying to work on the skin, and he's trying to get his own skin back so that he can go and visit Julie. There's a great shot where he's got the rags on, but you can still see his eyes. But he's got his glasses.
Yeah,
He's got his glasses just perched up, like just as if everything's normal, and he's got like fucking his eyes are pure red, and his face is hanging off, and he's got the bandages, and just his wee glasses there. And he's just like, oh fuck, I can't get this right.
I love when he's working in his lair and stuff. And even just the clothes he wears, he's just wearing like a wee red shirt. His glasses are perched there, and his wee hands are sort of like bandaged. But it's the bit when we were saying he's like typing away, and he's got the one burnt hand, but then like the gloved hand, which is just obviously then his actual hand. But when he's like looking at it, and he's like,
There's one thing I do love, and I kind of hate as well. I hate this in other movies, but I kind of love it, and it works for this one. Is whenever the character talks to himself to explain the story, which he does a lot of. He does a lot of outspoken monologue to help progress the story. Where when he's in the lair and he's like, they've taken my hands, and then he's like, oh, I have to do this or I have to do that, and it's very much like a Batman Arkham Knight game or something. It's almost like it's telling you what you have to do, and he's telling us what he has to do to progress the story. And sometimes it can be a cheap way to tell a story, but it does kind of work here. But I also wanted to say, obviously we know this was massively influenced by Batman and Universal classic monsters, as we said, but this film also influenced a lot of films after it in many ways. There's one thing that I did notice, and maybe I'm reaching a wee bit here, but I love Dead Man's Shoes, which was directed by Shane Meadows, starring Paddy Considine. So basically, it's kind of like a revenge flick as well, but it's set in I don't know, Midlands in England, I think it is. And Paddy Considine plays a character called Richard, who comes back to take revenge on a local gang who bullied his brother. But what he does is he doesn't just go there and kill the gang. He goes there and he talks to them all individually in a sort of creepy way, and he freaks them out. And Darkman kind of does that a bit at the start. He could easily went out and just bought a gun and went around and shot the gang members or done that, but he does this cool thing where he takes their skin, he takes their face, and he plays with he plays games with them. I just like the idea that he plays with the gang members instead of just like going straight out and killing them. And it made me think of Dead Man's Shoes, which is one of my favorite movies. So he does that thing where when he takes Durant's face, he commits the robbery, and he looks into the camera and he's like, I'm Richard Durant, or whatever his name is. And it's kind of like, why would you do that? It just feels weird. Like, if you're going to take revenge on somebody, why would you just commit like a small robbery? I don't know. You must know that this guy's going to get out somehow. And then obviously that you've got that fucking awesome scene at the end. Just before we get to the awesome scene at the end, I wanted to talk about the title sequences again. Again, very Batman-esque. The actual graphics of the title sequence. You've got the font, which has got that little glow behind it, and then you've got all the smoke, and then at the end, before it goes to dark, it sort of reverses the smoke in and it comes in again, and it's just felt kind of very Batman-esque, Gotham Night, kind of smoky, atmospheric type of atmosphere, I suppose. And then in the end sequence, which is fucking brilliant, man. What a way to end the film. I mean, so you have Liam Neeson, who runs away from Julian. He's accepted his fate. He's accepted who he is. He's never going to be the same, and he does that. He says that line, "I'm everyone and no one. I'm everywhere and nowhere. Call me Darkman." And then it's fucking Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell fucking turns around and gives that look, the Bruce Campbell look with the chin.
But I love it because I love that you don't see his face when he runs off. He grabs a mask, and I didn't actually ever really notice that before that he grabbed. But I noticed it when I rewatched it there, and it's kind of supposed to look similar to Bruce Campbell's face. And he runs off, and then she runs out after him really quickly, and she's like, "Oh, where are you? Where are you?" And he fades into the crowd, and it's just that lovely shot, and it's just a beautiful shot where it's like you can see everyone's shoulders, and it's a busy high street, and he says that line, "I'm everyone and no one, I'm everywhere and nowhere, call me Darkman," and then Bruce Campbell just sort of turns around, and and the best thing is that he doesn't do the Bruce Campbell. He doesn't do the sort of gimmick. He just looks around and he's quite serious, and then that's it. And it's just fucking, and it's a great ending. And I need a Bruce Campbell Darkman movie now, to be fair. I know they did.
I was going to say, have you seen the second one? I have not seen part two.
Don't remember. There's three. There's actually a part three. Yeah. Okay. So I don't ever remember seeing the second one. I definitely haven't seen the third one.
Do we need to do we need to have a watch of the
we
sequels? But we'll do one video for the two
we could down the line a little bit. We could maybe do another one if anyone wants to hear us.
Anyone wants to see us do
a sequel on
Darkman sequels?
Yeah,
let us know.
I'd prefer not to, but I will if people comment and say yes.
People want it.
I'll do it. But so and there was like comic books as well, and I want to say there might have been an animated, maybe or.
See, something tells me I remember there's definitely figures. They did figures for it, and I know they did the comic adaptations and stuff, but I wasn't sure about anything else. I knew they did the second sequel. I didn't even know there was a third sequel.
There's a third one, and the comic books I think were quite popular. I don't know how big they were, like money wise and stuff, but they were quite. I know they sort of continued the story on, but I think we really need to see the Bruce Campbell Darkman.
That would be.
I suppose it'd be difficult to do now because if you were kind of going to do, it's a kind of young Bruce Campbell, I suppose. So, but they could do it. They could do it somehow. Sam Raimi, please do your sequel.
The thing with Darkman though is you could literally have anybody play the Darkman because he can take on any face he wants.
Yeah.
So it's not even. We don't even need like a reboot or a revamp or anything like that.
No.
They can just do a sequel.
It would be it has to be a sequel. No fucking reboot. I hate rebooting shit. Just do sequels. Keep the story. Keep the thing. Bring Bruce Campbell back. He's an older. Maybe he's a whatever. Obviously he's older, but I don't know. Just give us more Darkman if you can.
Yeah. Perfected skin serum, please.
Skin.
Has he perfected his skin serum? That's what we want to know.
Just think of the amount of stuff you could do now, though. With all with the apps, you could just take a picture on your phone and be like, "There's your new face," and then print it out. 3D printing, you could do it like that. No bother. Piece of piss.
We'll combine Darkman and Face Off.
Aye, well, exactly. They did. Apparently, they were thinking about doing a remake of Face Off or something. I don't know.
No.
Just leave it. Just leave it.
Yeah.
Nick Cage is busy doing too many movies right now. Well, he makes about 24 movies a year. So, and they're all well.
They're all right.
They're all right. I don't watch a lot of them. To be fair, a lot of them are direct to video or DVD or whatever, and streaming and stuff. So a lot of them I don't catch. But yeah, he's done a few good ones. Mandy was supposed to be very good, wasn't it?
I heard that. I haven't seen it yet, but again, it's one that's recommended a few times to me, so I must check it out.
But yeah, no, I really enjoyed talking about Darkman today. We've been wanting to do this for a while, and actually, we were talking about doing a screening of Darkman this year.
Darkman would have been spectacular. I would have loved to.
Pink
elephants for everyone.
I know, pre-COVID. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do any screenings this year since March, but it was one on the list, and if we can do it maybe next year or something. Obviously, we wanted to celebrate 30 years, so that was the main thing, and having the Liam Neeson connection. I'm not saying Liam was going to show up or anything, but that would have been funny. Just him strutting. All right, where's the hospital at? Yet.
Or just fucking elephant. Just coming in with an elephant.
Well, do you know? We just hire him to be like the concession guy that would walk around. You know, the wee guy that walks around with all the popcorn and stuff. Instead of that, he's got pink elephants and he's just like pushing it in people's faces, being like, "Take the fucking elephant!
Take the fucking elephant!"
I know. Or I'll put you in hospital. But yeah, we'd love to do a Darkman screening. We love Darkman. It's fucking still a great movie.
Just Raimi in general.
But anyway, we'll definitely be doing an Evil Dead episode soon. We'll talk a little bit more about Sam Raimi. If you watched this video, you enjoyed it, comment underneath. Just let us know what you think about Darkman. Do you want to see a sequel with Bruce Campbell? Have you read any of the comics? Have you got any of the figures? Let us know what you think. If you don't already follow us on Instagram, please do. It's at the Fright Club NI, and it's the same username on Twitter. And check out the website www.thefrightclubni.com, and that's where you can check out the exclusive interview that I did with Lee Cronin, who is directing the new Evil Dead movie. It's coming out. What's it called? Evil Dead Rises? Am I right?
Not even sure.
It was called Evil Dead Rises, I think is what it's called. But yeah, so you can check that interview on the website. In the meantime, thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with another episode, and it's going to be a good episode next week. I know, Danny, you're looking forward to this one. I'll maybe leave a wee teaser at the end here. I'll see if we've got time. But if I don't leave a teaser, you'll just have to come back next week and check it out. So. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
Bye, everybody.